Okay, so back to the Western Theater along the Mississippi River. And we're also going to go back in time to the late fall of 1862 in talking about the Vicksburg campaign. It's a campaign that, like I say, goes on for something like 6, 7, 8 months before it culminates on July 4th, 1863. So Vicksburg, as I talked about, was a city, actually a very wealthy city on the Mississippi River. It had been a center of slavery before the Civil War. There's a railroad actually crossed over uh, the Mississippi. There wasn't a bridge, but there were barges that took goods from one side of the Mississippi to the other side. So it was a very important transportation point, not only north-south along the Mississippi, but in terms of the railroad as well. And the Confederates controlled in March. I'm sorry, in the fall of 1862. The Union, by the fall of 1862, have basically taken control over Kentucky and Tennessee, um, and the northern part of Mississippi, Corinth, Mississippi, for instance. But the Union Army under Grant has not taken control over Vicksburg, Mississippi. Vicksburg controlled the middle stretch of the Mississippi River. Uh, One of the reasons that it was so tough to capture, it was located on a very high bluff that an army could not scale. It was almost like a vertical bluff that was well over 100 feet high. And so it could not be attacked frontally by Grant's army. And so so it couldn't be attacked frontally. The other thing is the Mississippi River at this point is very wide, almost a mile wide. The Mississippi River is a real river. It's not like these puny little Texas rivers that we're so familiar with that most of the year that you can walk across. The Mississippi River is a very, very serious river. So what you have is the Mississippi, the town of Vicksburg is on this very high bluff on the Mississippi side of the Mississippi River. Now, importantly, by the fall of 1862, the Union Army controlled the section of Louisiana across from Vicksburg. Okay, so this is very important to keep in mind that the Confederates still controlled the state of Mississippi, especially the area around and east of Vicksburg. But the Union Army controls the area on the Mississippi River, the western area in Louisiana. So the Union Army can deploy itself. Grant can deploy Union troops on the other side of the Mississippi River from Vicksburg, but you know what? That doesn't do him a lot of good because he's still got a mile of river, a very powerful river to cross to be able to capture Vicksburg. And even if his troops got across and got underneath Vicksburg, it would be impossible for them to scale the cliffs up to Vicksburg. So, but keep in mind that Grant controls not only the area north of Vicksburg, but Grant also controls the Louisiana side of the Mississippi River across from Vicksburg as well. Now, here was another problem for Grant. The area north of Vicksburg is an area that is very, very swampy. It's the Mississippi Delta. There's all kinds of very exotic rivers like the Yazoo River and multiple bayous in the area north of Mississippi. So one of the problems Grant has is not only can he not attack Mississippi going west to east because he runs into the Mississippi River and because Vicksburg is so high up on this bluff, he can't really attack Vicksburg. Although he's going to try, it's going to prove a failure. He can't really attack Vicksburg from the north. He can't come directly down to Vicksburg because of geography and because that area is just so wet that it becomes impossible to have a large movement of Union troops to attack Vicksburg directly from the north. So what happens is that Vicksburg is very well situated. It's very well defended. The only way that Grant can attack Vicksburg is he's got to figure out some way to get to the west of Vicksburg. I'm sorry, to get to the east of Vicksburg. Let me just say that again. The only way that Grant can take Vicksburg is he has to somehow get his army across the Mississippi River and attack Vicksburg from the east, right? Because he can't really attack it from the west because of the Mississippi River. He can't really attack it from the north because it's so wet just north of Vicksburg, and you can't move a large army across these wetlands. It's hard to attack it from the south. The easiest thing for Grant to do, it's not easy, it takes him like 8 months to figure out how to do it, is that he has to figure out some way to get his troops into a position east of Vicksburg and then attack it from the east and thereby capture it. So it's a very, very tough nut for Grant to crack, although eventually he does. Hold on for a second here. Okay, just seeing how much time I have left on this podcast. Here's another problem that the Union had, in theory anyway. The belief is that the Union controlled the area north of Vicksburg, the area of the Mississippi River north of Vicksburg. But the belief is that gunboats couldn't sail past Vicksburg because they would be sunk, because Vicksburg was on the high ground and it could just lob artillery shells into these boats. So Vicksburg it's really a tough position for Grant to figure out how to capture. And this is why it takes him from the late fall of 1863 until July 4th the late fall of 1862 to July 4th of 1863 to capture this hugely a significant position. Okay, now let me talk a little bit more about the significance of Vicksburg and the fact that when the Confederates controlled Vicksburg, they controlled this huge stretch of the Mississippi River. One historian basically what he said was that the Mississippi River was the spinal column of America. That it was right in the center of the interior. It flowed for 2,000 miles. Vessels, ships of all sorts, sailed up and down the Mississippi River. With the advent of steam power, vessels could sail up from New Orleans up the Mississippi River with steam power. And then, of course, the Mississippi River flowed to the south, so good you could just, nature would take you in a southerly direction. And someone who took a trip on the Mississippi River as a kid was Abraham Lincoln. He and a buddy of his floated down the Mississippi River on a very small raft all the way to New Orleans, and that's where Lincoln actually was introduced to the cruelty of slavery. He saw slaves shackled. We think he saw slave trades going on, and it horrified him. So, but Abe Lincoln, this was something kids would do. Of course, if you've read Huckleberry Finn, you get a sense of this. Huck Finn and Jim sail down the Mississippi River. So Lincoln is super aware of the importance of Vicksburg. He said, and this is a direct quote, "See what a lot of land these fellows hold, of which Vicksburg is the key. The war can never be brought to a close until that key is in our pocket. We can take all the northern ports of the Confederacy and they can defy us from Vicksburg." So if the Confederates still hold Vicksburg, not only do they hold the city, but they hold this huge area of Mississippi as well. And so Lincoln is saying, unless we capture Vicksburg, the Confederacy can hold this entire area of the South and they can defy us. He said, and again, this is a quote, "I am acquainted with that region and know what I'm talking about. As valuable as New Orleans will be to us, Vicksburg will be more so. So for Lincoln, New Orleans, which already was in his pocket, the Union Navy had captured New Orleans very shortly after Shiloh. But for Lincoln, Vicksburg was actually more important than New Orleans. And for one of the reasons, not just militarily, he wants to open up the Mississippi River for political reasons because farmers in the north, in Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, even further north, had been used to selling their goods, their agricultural goods, south. And just economically, as well as militarily, opening up the Mississippi River would have been, a huge moment. Sherman said, and again, this is a direct quote, "To secure the safety of the navigation of the Mississippi River, I would slay millions." This is Sherman being Sherman. He was a little bit manic depressive. But again, he talks about, this speaks to the significance of Richmond. He later said, and this is a quote, "In my opinion, the opening of the Mississippi River will be to us to more advantage than the capture of 40 Richmonds." Okay, 40 Richmonds. So the capture of the Mississippi River in opening up the entire Mississippi River to the Union controlling the entire Mississippi River, was hugely important both militarily and economically, and everybody recognized it.